until President Trump's so-called Big Beautiful Bill kicks in late next year. And this is happening at the same time that many U.S. farmers are warning that they are reaching a breaking point, as unpredictable weather, rising costs, and fallout from Trump's tariffs are impacting their bottom line.
But our farmers are going to have a field day right now. So to our farmers, have a lot of fun. I love you too.
Bottom line.
A cotton farmer is going to lose $375 an acre for every acre of cotton he planted. A corn farmer is going to lose $220 an acre for every acre of corn he planted. A bean farmer is going to lose $120 an acre for every acre he planted. So you're talking last time it was between $105 an acre and $75 an acre. This time I'd say take $150 or $200 an acre to square everybody up.
America has just harvested one of the largest corn crops in its history, yet the story is far from triumphant. Instead of prosperity, farmers across the nation are facing the harshest financial squeeze since the 1980s. What should have been a season of abundance has turned into one of deep anxiety. Across the Midwest, entire communities are realizing that planting more no longer guarantees stability. For 3 consecutive years, producers of nearly every major crop have been losing money, draining their savings and eroding confidence in the future. Government data shows that between 2023 and 2024, net farm cash income suffered the sharpest 2-year decline since the 1970s. In a paradoxical twist, record harvests have delivered financial pain rather than relief. Soybeans, once the safety valve of American farm income, have been hit especially hard. Global prices have dropped by more than a third in just 4 years, erasing billions in revenue. This collapse has left the rural economy squeezed between falling crop values and mounting uncertainty. The central question now is how America reached a point where bumper harvests bring not relief but deeper debt, and what this reversal signals about the future of U.S. agriculture in a world of volatile markets and shifting trade policies. The harvest paradox was the first shock. The collapse of export markets has been the second, and perhaps even more devastating. Rather than expanding access to buyers abroad, trade policy choices have closed doors, leaving U.S. agriculture more isolated than any time in the last 2 decades. By mid-2025, soybean exports had fallen to their lowest level in 20 years, a stunning reversal for one of the nation's most valuable global commodities. Much of this downturn can be traced to Beijing's retaliation. In response to tariffs from Washington, China cut imports of American soybeans by an estimated 14 to 16 million tons per year, more than half its previous demand evaporating almost overnight. Analysts estimate that this single shift translated into losses of between $3.60 and $5.9 billion annually for U.S. soybean farmers. Corn growers are being dragged down as well, facing additional export losses of nearly $1 billion each year as shipments are diverted to other suppliers. The pain has been compounded by China's retaliatory tariffs, worth roughly $21 billion, on a broad range of U.S. agricultural and food products. What was intended as leverage in a trade dispute has instead become a self-inflicted wound that deepens with every passing season, yet collapsing exports are only one side of the crisis. Farmers are also being crushed by rising production costs that tighten like chains year after year. While crop prices fall, the bills required to keep farms operating have surged in the opposite direction, creating an unforgiving squeeze. Since 2020, interest rates on farmland loans and operating credit have climbed by more than 40%, making it significantly more expensive to finance even the most basic production needs. For farmers already grappling with declining income, this surge in borrowing costs has turned ordinary financing into a high-stakes gamble. Fertilizer has become another heavy burden. The United States relies on Canada for about 80 to 85% of its potash imports. When a 25% tariff was imposed, it added roughly $100 per ton almost overnight. For corn producers, fertilizer accounted for around 22% of total costs in 2024, meaning every price spike cut directly into already fragile margins. Even beyond potash, other inputs have trended upward. Ammonium fertilizer, a cornerstone for U.S. farms, has risen by more than 15% over the past 5 years. The result is a farm economy where costs keep climbing while selling prices continue to erode, leaving producers trapped in a tightening vice with fewer options for relief. As American farmers struggle, competitors abroad have been quick to seize the opening. Trade disputes that undermine U.S. agriculture have created a golden opportunity for South America's grain giants. Brazil, in particular, has surged ahead, overtaking the United States as China's top soybean supplier. This shift is not merely symbolic. It represents a strategic realignment in global trade flows. Under current tariff conditions, Brazil has been able to expand its annual soybean and corn exports by an estimated 4.6 million tons, cargo that might once have sailed from U.S. ports. Currency dynamics have further tilted the field. A weaker Brazilian real has made soybeans nearly 70 cents per bushel cheaper than U.S. supplies, an advantage significant enough to sway massive buyers like Beijing. For China, the calculation is straightforward. Cheaper imports that also avoid political entanglements. For American farmers, it represents another closed door. Argentina has stepped into the vacuum as well, securing a reported $9 billion long-term agreement with the European Union to supply agricultural commodities that previously came from the United States. What was once Washington's domain has increasingly shifted to Sao Paulo and Buenos Aires. In this new geopolitical competition, every policy misstep in Washington translates into opportunity for its rivals. The global market has not paused to wait for America to recover. It has simply moved on. This convergence of collapsing prices, shrinking exports, and rising costs has left U.S. farmers navigating the harshest environment in decades. For many, it feels like a replay of the 1980s farm crisis, when debt, interest rates, and trade turmoil devastated rural America. The difference today is that the challenges are not confined to national policy alone. They are embedded in global market structures and international rivalries. The same forces that once gave American agriculture its strength, abundance, efficiency, and global reach have now exposed its vulnerabilities in an unforgiving economic climate. The future of U.S. farming will likely depend on how quickly policymakers can recalibrate trade strategies, stabilize costs, and restore competitive footing in international markets. Without decisive action, the paradox of record harvest delivering deeper hardship could define not just this season, but an entire era of American agriculture. Corn, long regarded as a crown jewel of American agriculture, has not escaped the storm. Despite producing a record 378 million tons in the 2024-25 season, more than any other country, the United States finds itself increasingly sidelined in the very markets that once secured its dominance. Abundance has not translated into power. Exports to China, once a critical outlet for American corn, have collapsed. Annual shipments are estimated to have fallen by about 2.2 million tons, a drop of more than 80% compared with earlier levels. This plunge is not the result of shifting diets or consumer preferences. It stems directly from retaliatory tariffs that have made U.S. corn both more expensive and less attractive. Beijing's countermeasures, ranging from a 10 to 15% levy on American corn and wheat, have tilted the playing field in favor of South American competitors who can supply without political baggage. The financial consequences for U.S. producers are immediate and measurable. Market simulations suggest corn prices could decline by 8 cents per bushel if tariff exemptions were withdrawn, and by as much as 13 cents per bushel if duties climb towards 60%. For a sector already operating on razor-thin margins, even minor price shifts can mean the difference between survival and bankruptcy. The symbolism is as powerful as the economics. A crop once central to America's global influence now struggles to hold its place on the world stage. The ripple effects extend far beyond the fields. Every dollar loss at the farm gate triggers a chain reaction across rural America, pulling down local economies that depend on agriculture as their lifeblood. What begins as lower income for growers quickly translates into fewer purchases at equipment dealers, shuttered main street shops, and shrinking tax revenues for schools and hospitals. For corn alone, analysts estimate annual losses of between $900 million and $1.4 billion. When combined with soybean declines, the total economic hit reaches an estimated $4.90 to $7.90 billion in GDP each year. These figures are not abstract. They represent real livelihoods eroded and real communities forced into painful cutbacks. Local governments and farm-dependent regions have already been trimming budgets, reducing services, and watching young people leave in search of steadier work elsewhere. Jobs tied to transport, logistics, and processing have disappeared alongside export demand, leaving rural towns struggling to hold on. This economic paralysis is compounded by reputational damage. America's credibility as a reliable supplier of agricultural goods, already shaken during the 2018 trade war, has suffered another blow. Trust, once lost, is difficult to regain, and each season of instability deepens doubts among global buyers. What looks on the surface like an agricultural crisis is, in reality, a community crisis, one that eats away at both the economic and social fabric of rural America. For decades, American grain was more than food. Corn, wheat, and soybeans were tools of diplomacy, securing Washington influence from Latin America to Asia. That leverage is slipping, increasingly claimed by rivals with fewer political constraints. As U.S. exports retreat, Brazil and Argentina have stepped in, expanding acreage and investing in infrastructure that is reshaping global supply chains. Each new field in Mato Grosso or Cordoba not only boosts output but shifts the balance of agricultural power. Meanwhile, global buyers have grown cautious. Tariffs, retaliations, and abrupt policy swings make U.S. shipments appear less dependable, pushing trade partners toward long-term arrangements elsewhere. The result is a steady erosion of what analysts describe as America's food soft power. Grain once amplified Washington's global voice. Now, each lost contract weakens its diplomatic reach. The troubling question arises: if food can no longer serve as a reliable tool of influence, what remains? The current crisis may seem severe, but many warn it is only the beginning. Without structural reform, American farmers risk being locked in a cycle of temporary relief rather than lasting stability. Subsidies and short-term fixes can blunt the pain but do little to restore competitiveness. The narrow path forward lies in diversification, moving beyond reliance on China and Mexico toward emerging markets in India, Africa, and other regions hungry for grain technology could offer.